Hello, I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Lesson 21, Lucky 21. I was going to start on the Kabbalic Tree of Life today, but I'm going to set that aside because I've had so many questions about how to break curses and hexes. So I will wait to begin the Tree of Life, and we will do Lucky 21, Lesson 21 as a lesson on how to quick break a curse, how to banish bad luck, how to dismiss and release negative energies or intentions that might be directed at you. And I'll explain how to perform different types of unbinding rituals too. First off, if you're one of those people who does a light shield or a mental visualization of light, like a sphere, a bubble around yourself when you're scared or when you think someone's being mean to you or when you become anxious or whatever the situation, that's cool. If that works for you, keep doing it, I suppose, if it actually is working for you. But I'm not going to explain or suggest that technique. The thing is, when you work with higher magics, higher occult magics, you realize pretty quickly that if you're walking around doing that or needing to do that when confronted by things, experiences you don't like, things in life that you might disagree with, if you're calling up a light barrier to ward those things off all the darned time, what you're actually doing is constantly intending and then manifesting things to need to protect yourself from. For every time you come into contact with something you think you can't handle or don't like, or think you can't learn from, and then refuse to integrate properly, without calling up your happy light bubble to save you, right, from whatever, then you're also acknowledging forcefully that there's something you need to be saved and protected from. Now, this isn't always true, but a majority of the time, people are using this technique constantly in a misinformed way, and they're overusing it, and it's not going to be of service to them. Because this idea that there's something you need to be saved or protected from a majority of the time, no, there isn't. It can only have that effect on you, whatever you're shielding yourself from, because you're allowing it to correspond to you vibrationally. This is Hermetic law, right? Remember the pendulum I keep talking about? And yeah, by the way, after creating it as a problem, because you created it by deciding to see it as one. That's how you're creating it as a problem, because you're choosing that perspective. You're choosing to see it as a problem and never entertaining that it could possibly be anything else. And then you're choosing willfully to acknowledge that problem or that thing that you're fearful of or can't handle or can't deal with. You're acknowledging it and then corresponding to it, therefore empowering it further. By raising the shield, you're saying there's something there that I have to protect myself from, and now I need to put a barrier between me and it because it is going to attack me. You are creating all those eventualities. So by raising your joy, glowy light bubble around yourself, then you're going to force whatever this darkness is, whether it's someone that you think is too hostile or someone's toxic emotional field that you don't want to deal with, or a dark spirit or entity. What you're then doing is forcing it out of your awareness instead of actually integrating it, learning from it, or ever actually dealing with whatever the heck it is that you're constantly protecting yourself from. Which means it's going to come back again and again. And it will keep coming back in order to give you a reason, one, to need that glowy shield of yours that you're so proud and fond of. And two, the universe is more than happy to continually serve up the same lesson over and over and over until you figure it out, until you integrate and learn from that lesson and don't need to be confronted with it anymore. So it's going to keep coming back. The thing your bubble is shielding you from, that's the thing you haven't dealt with yet. That's why it still has power over you, and it always will until you realize it doesn't have to. So here's an idea. Drop the glow ball. Realize you don't need it. half the stuff coming at you is automatically going to go away because you aren't giving it a beacon to target and because you aren't giving it a reason to manifest in the first place. The other half of the junk that you've been shielding yourself from, it's going to automatically go away in its own way as well, because by no longer being threatened by it, by realizing and fulfilling your own power over those influences, individuals, entities, situations that scare you, whatever the heck, you won't be afraid of them anymore because you'll be seeing them from the perspective of your own manifested power rather than from a perspective of victimhood. And if you're not coming from a perspective of victimhood, you can no longer be a victim. And so the big scary things will suddenly just be big opportunities to learn, test, and improve yourself with. You're going to see them as the universe serving up lessons instead of serving up monsters, helpers instead of hinderers. So there's my first little suggestion, little piece of advice, and that's for all the people coming at me with questions of glow shields and how do I make one, and I love my glow shield, but it's not protecting me from X. Enough with the glow shields. I know I sound really down on this light shield bubbling technique, but it is very common, it is very overused, and even when it's not overused, it's generally misused. I'm really not down on this technique. There are reasons to use these techniques, including a light shield or a light sphere. The middle pillar meditative sequence training of a hermetic ritual in daily Magick actually culminates in a really powerful energetic shield. So yeah, it's useful, it's necessary. Magic practitioners do use them. The difference is using the practice often and correctly by choice in a controlled environment, using it as it's intended to be used, using the middle pillar for the purpose of harnessing positive power within yourself, using it in that way. That is far different from misusing a less-informed technique in a reactive way. A reactive habit is only ever going to form a pattern beyond the user's control, because if you're reacting, you're not controlling. Chosen and dedicated habits of will, those habits that you choose, those form patterns which give their users you control. So that's the difference. A reactive habit is only going to form a pattern beyond the user's control. Chosen and dedicated habits of will form patterns which give their users control. And that's what we're after, right? We're after mastery, self-mastery, self-control. That is how you will get to magical mastery. Also, sometimes we need to acknowledge that we're sending negative energy towards other people. Maybe not in a major or massive way, but it's going to happen. You're going to send negative energy towards people that you don't like. We're human. It happens. We all do this. You do it. Nobody's perfect. So if you do this, you can then understand how others are going to do it to you sometimes as well, right? They're going to do it to you too. It's going on. Even despite themselves, it's going to happen. And that is not some huge end of the world catastrophic event, right? It's when we recognize, hyperanalyze, overpostulize, right? Those vibrations that we're sensing from others, and then take them on. When we correlate to them, instead of recognizing that this is just something that's happening, and sometimes not in a major way, and maybe not even always intentionally focused at us. But when we correlate to that negative energy or negative energetic intention that's coming from someone or something, that is what's completing its manifestation. You can kind of see how that works, because if someone's giving you a dirty look and you don't turn around and notice that they're giving you a dirty look, that energetic intention is never able to manifest with you. You never feel a response to it. You never feel angry or hurt by that dirty look because you never saw it. You were never aware of it. But if you become aware of it, then that energetic intention that was focused on you has now collaborated and correlated to your vibration, and you're going to sense it. You're going to feel it. It's going to complete its manifestation by having an effect. See how that works? So already, one of the best and most powerful ways you have as a magic practitioner to break curses and banish bad things is to not allow the loop of someone else's negative intention to find completion in you. Now, we can't walk around pretending people aren't giving us dirty looks. Sometimes they are, and it's not good to bury your head in the sand and lose all sight of where your feet are walking, right? So you can't just choose to ignore what's going on. But you can be aware that something's going on without reacting to it. So you can see the dirty look and still not allow it to manifest within you. So someone doesn't like you, right? Well, first of all, on an emotional and psychological level, if you don't know them or if you know that it's irrational or unintentional, who cares? Who cares if they don't like you? Someone says something nasty. That's them. It's not you, right? They might think they're trying to hurt you, but you can be aware of the fact that they're really only hurting themselves. So that's one great way to break that curse right there. If someone focuses and casts bad energy at you, it's okay to passively dismiss it if it's not at all dangerous to you. So just let them direct it wherever they will, and then allow it to redirect and flow right around you, right off of you, without ever entering into you, without ever becoming cohesive with your own field. And that's just by choosing willfully not to engage with it because it is beneath you in some way. Now, if something is more dangerous than that, if you can't just choose to ignore it, this is a slightly higher level of training, but if you've been doing your depolarization, if you are depolarized, you can be aware of something happening and not react to it while also not needing to forgive it. If you're depolarized, there are many situations where you can become aware of someone attempting to mistreat you in some way, or maybe mistreating you in some way. And by being aware of it's happening and completely validating that, of being aware of how those behaviors are the responsibility of their wielder and not your responsibility, you then release yourself from victimhood by simply refusing to claim victimhood, by refusing to latch onto it. In awareness, you can see what's happening and stand beyond its reach calmly and choose to let that energy go somewhere else rather than into you, even if you can't just passively ignore it. This is definitely the most, Jedi monk way, right, of banishing negative energy, breaking curses, dismissing vibrations that you don't want to harmonize with. So as you're moving forward in your occult practices, do that when and where you can, if you can, right? This is how you're going to get better at it. It's how you're going to progress and gain experience. It isn't always easy, though. Not at first, not until you gain some of that experience. It can take some practice, especially for people who are new to this type of technique of mastery, and especially if they've been conditioned to believe reacting is how reality works or how life is supposed to function. You could be behind this illusion, right? You could be behind this shadowy tapestry yourself and not realize that that's where you are. If someone's mean to you, you're supposed to be mean back, right? Isn't that how things are? Isn't that what you've been taught? It would be crazy to let some icky person just mistreat you horribly or treat you very badly or yell at you or whatever, and then respond by not becoming irritated, by not trying to defend yourself, or even more crazy, to choose to respond to someone screaming in your face, perhaps, by being nice to them. Yeah. See, this is how most people have been conditioned to perceive reality. That's how sheep are conditioned to think and feel and behave. If you're mean, I'll be mean. If you're nice, I'll be nice. I am a sheep, and that is sanity, and that is how reality functions. Bah, right? Choose for me what action to take next, person who has more control of me than I have, because that is how this game is working. Bah. But the truth is, this is really how most non-occultists think, right? We see it all over the place. I see it around myself and others all the time. And that is how they behave. That's where they're functioning from. And that's because they've been conditioned by every interaction they've had with others operating exactly the same way on them, to think and act in that way, to always respond in kind. That's how, quote unquote, reality works for the illusioned, for most people. It isn't really reality. You really are a part of that dynamic. What you don't realize is you're no longer making active choices within it. You're being passive, you're drifting, right? Those choices are being made for you. And even though you don't realize it, you've already given that control away. As an occultist, we're not about giving control away. So you actually can step into the Jedi way of doing things by beginning to choose how to behave, no matter how someone else behaves towards you. It takes practice. You'll get there. Self-mastery, with all of its seemingly superhuman skill sets and superhuman abilities and talents to fulfill your own intentions, right? That doesn't happen overnight. So, in the meantime, be doing that. But in the meantime, laughter. See, I know everyone's waiting for me to give you like a hex-breaking spell or something. Here's your hex-breaking spell. Laughter. If a demon is following you around every night, if you can laugh at it, you've won. Laughter is the fastest and easiest way to break a curse. And when I say demon, by the way, let's all keep in mind here that that's a little ridiculous in and of itself, that labeling. But I'm just trying to explain when you're trying to remove a negative or opposing energy that you may not want in some way. So laughter is the way to remove bad or unwanted energies. It's going to banish unwanted entities of all sorts, whether they're demonic or angel. If you don't want them there, angelic or evil, however you perceive it, if you don't want them there, laughing them is going to banish them. It's going to dismiss all types of negative vibrations from yourself, physically, from your body, from your sphere, from your spiritual and psychic fields, and from your immediate environment. And if you do it right and well, from the immediate environment of those near you who might also be being affected by something negative. There's a deep occult mystery here that you aren't going to hear too many people going on and on about. And I've probably mentioned it before, that laughter, this authentic power of genuine and sincere laughter within the physical body, mind, and spirit, it blasts away. It will blast away all across all the important fields and instantaneously clear out everything and anything that doesn't acknowledge and reflect back its own power. Laughter is contagious. You ever hear that one, right? There's a reason we refer to it as a disease, as almost this dangerous thing. There's almost nothing that doesn't either fall prey to it, join it, or has to immediately run away from its presence so as not to be instantaneously destroyed by it. Laughter is it's the antithesis, but it's the anti-charge of all the darkest, dark, negative baddies. Not joy, right? Sometimes people think that you have to confront some powerful bad thing with some powerful, pure, immaculate joy, whatever. That's not true. It's not joy. It's laughter. Actually, happily, calmly laughing in an unstressed, unforced way, as if you don't even need to apply power to it. Although if you have to force yourself at first to get to an unforced laugh, do what you have to do. But Laughter is going to be your best bind breaker, curse remover, banisher. Now, why? How is it such a powerful occult tool? It's disarming. Unlike joy, where you're trying to focus on something that might be beyond reach, or you're going to hold it onto a pedestal or demand of yourself some functionality of it that's so pure and immaculate that it's going to be very hard to hold onto and then use. Unlike joy, or unlike trying to force something bad away. See, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it here. Instead of trying to visualize purity or strength or something like that, or take those tools or weapons or effects to this enemy that you're trying to get rid of or dismiss or banish or curse or hex you're trying to break or remove, laughter not only takes power from the negative and blasts it apart, it also disengages from the negative entirely, which is what those other techniques aren't going to do. Laughter takes whatever icky you're dealing with, it takes all of its weapons away. All of its ability to keep feeding from you is stripped. Laughter does that. It strips the enemy. It starves it. It stabs it, and then it blows it apart all at once. Because the opposing degree of the negative, of bad junk, curses, hexes, dark spirits, directed negative energy, depression, stress, anxiety, a chaotic and unhappy mind, any of that stuff that may or may not be cast at you by an actual someone else or person else, maledictions of all sorts, none of those things can survive in the face of laughter. Magically and occultically, none of them can retain their power. Within laughter's presence, they're stripped of all power, because those things need your empowerment. They need your fear or your low vibrational correspondence to them. If you're scared or depressed or stressed or anxious, if you're in these mental states, that is what those things are going to feed from. It's what they need to feed from. It's what they're trying to create in you in order to feed from and empower themselves to exist, to survive. So in order to engage with you and cause effects to manifest, they can't have you laughing. So if you laugh, then it's gone. Finito. Like you've snapped your fingers and poof, whatever the heck it was, bad curse, bad hex that's been laid on you, bad negative vibrations that someone's directing at you, bad or dark entity or spirit that you think is there or is there attacking you in some way, now it's going to have to find somewhere else to exist. If you laugh at it, that's what's going to have to happen. Or it's going to have to find someone else to exist parasitically from, or some other way of fulfilling its intended manifestation, because that's a universal law. Because it can't close that loop, that circuit with you, it will have to find a way to close that loop somewhere else or with someone else. Laughter gives bad junk two options: to either integrate or dissipate within your field as you laugh, or to find another place to be other than you or on you or near you or in you, because that's how magical energy works every time. It's a circle. So the bad junk can either transmute into something else that isn't bad or icky. If it wants to remain in your field when you laugh, right, it's going to have to join in. Or it can leave and continue to be gross and icky and retain its self-identity, and it can be itself somewhere else, and it can close the circle that way. Those are negative forces only options in the face of authentic laughter. And I went on and on about this for a long time. So I'll have to get to string breaking, unbinding rituals, salt purification use, all that sort of thing in my next video. But the stuff I've mentioned so far is actually the best, most powerful, and most important stuff to get you started anyway. This is the really elite stuff, actually, because these are the actual ways that high occultic practitioners protect themselves. And this is where we're functioning from. This is how we're protecting ourselves. This is how we're empowered by the craft. So it's more important than the other stuff anyway. The other stuff, it's necessary and it's good and I'll go over it, but it's more like chores. Those things are more like little errands that you need to do sometimes, right? Whereas this, what I'm discussing, is the elusive, powerful protection lesson that you're going to wish you had paid more attention to later when you need it, right? You're going to wish you had practiced it more and better if and when you need it. And for anyone who's thinking of, oh, if laughter is so great and so deep an occult mystery, why don't you see it advertised and represented the way everything else filters down, right? Because the occult, the great teachings, they're filtered down. You can see them projected onto all of the masses. So where's laughter in that? Why have I never heard of its importance? Well, have you ever wondered why jack-o'-lanterns always smile? If you look into what a jack-o'-lantern is actually supposed to be doing, then you will begin to understand why they calmly laugh and dismiss anything that tries to cross a threshold when it isn't wanted, just by smiling. Or allow me to refer you to the Jack-in-the-Box, right? Here's an object toy, which teaches a simple lesson to any observer of a child using it. It will either dumbfound, terrify, or make the intended user hysterically happy and laugh out loud every time, entirely depending on the vibration of that user, of that child's cognitive codification and cohesion with it. And that's an old toy, the Jack-in-the-Box. Just like the tradition of Jack-in-the-Lanterns, right? Those are very old, symbolic objects. The Jack-in-the-Box is a mysterious toy with hidden doors that unlock. You're having an emotional response to just thinking about that toy if you do. Good or bad, it's going to be a bigger mental response, emotional response within your field, just thinking about it, than you have when someone mentions a rubber bouncing ball. A jester in a cube on a spring does that to you. It's an occult symbol. And for those who understood none of what I was just alluding to there, have you seen the movie It, right? Here's another modern take. Stephen King, it's this dramatic horror movie thing with the clown in it. Yeah, another clown, another symbol of the high art form of laughter, the great craft, right? But it's a bad clown. It's so bad, it's so powerful. And it's because it actually isn't a clown, right? But it's so swung to that far side of the negative degree that it can't be perceived in any other way as harmful to anyone who perceives it, right? It's born of death and tragedy. It's been historically gathering power from all sorts of well-fed fear and cow blood sacrifices, right? So here's this nasty, icky thing. And what does it disguise itself as? What would you disguise yourself as if you were smart? Maybe you would take on the occultic teaching of oppositional influences, and maybe you disguise yourself as your own worst enemy. Maybe if you're smart, maybe you hide your one weakness in broad daylight by becoming it. Visually, at least, by wearing a clown costume and a clown mask, even though you're this horrible thing, right? You're showing yourself as a clown, as laughter, as a symbol of the high craft of laughter. And what beats this dark entity? Fighting it doesn't work. Hiding from it doesn't work, right? These kids get tortured and maligned by these things, then followed by it into adulthood. So what actually dissolves its hold and makes it flee? Not thinking about it, not acknowledging it, not believing in it, calmly, happily, smiling, and refusing to collaborate with it vibrationally. If you can look at Stephen King's it and laugh and not care because it doesn't bother you, then it can't have your belief. It can't exist for you, right? This is what is described in depth in this movie or in this book. It disappears out of your field. It can't work with you. Yeah, laughter. It's really powerful stuff. I'll go over all those rituals and things in the next podcast. But this is what you're going to need. This is the tool that's going to help you the most. Until next time.